have to cancel for today. All right. Uh,
So now we have a good quality sound, good quality video. Is it okay for you also?
yeah, I think the video is not too sharp and it's sometimes a bit stuck in jumps, but it's good enough. I think it's good enough.
Okay. Well, we lost some time, but we solved it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, with great pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. All right, then we can start, I guess. So, um, yeah, we start like always by first kind of taking some comfortable position. This is actually one of the essential things for meditation. We're going to talk about this position later on, maybe even today. So we just take a comfortable position, such that we are not having any kind of pain while we're sitting in this situation, but we're very relaxed. Yeah, the whole position is supposed to be supportive for our meditation now. The very main thing is to sit upright. Yeah, that the spine is straight. So this is something, therefore, even for those who sit on a chair or something, even they can sit like that. So anyway, that's the main thing. Check your body if you have any tensions in your shoulders, in your arms, in your face, your jaw, and so forth. Check if your legs are comfortable, and then take such a comfortable position, and try to sit upright, and then just become aware that you are here in this room. And appreciate that room. You're here with a very special group of people. It's a good group to be with. It's a good place to be. It's probably the best place right now in all of your region or in all of your city. The people that are around you are very conducive. They're very special people. There's probably not such a group anywhere else in your city tonight. So this is a very good place to be. So we decide that we're gonna appreciate this place and go for this place and what's happening here tonight. So we are allowing ourselves to just be in this spot. And if our mind wants to run away to other places, to other ideas or plans and so forth, then we will bring the mind back to this very room, which is a very good room for us, very conducive. And so we also allow ourselves a break from planning the future or checking what happened in the past and so forth. Yeah? So we don't have to go to our daily life problems for now. For this remaining, what is that, like 1 hour, we give ourselves the break to just be here in the present, in the moment, in this room with these people. So let's make this a conscious decision to keep the mind within these four walls, here within this group. And then in order to concentrate the mind further and to calm down the mind further, make it more conducive for this evening, we're gonna watch the breath a little bit. So we're just kind of focusing on the breath, moving in through the nostrils and moving out again when we exhale. And so this is a neutral object. We just keep the mind on that. We allow ourselves to do something as neutral as that. Just with the goal to calm ourselves, to concentrate ourselves. So if we find out while we are watching the breath that the mind gets distracted, gets involved into all kind of other thoughts or objects, then without making a drama out of it or feeling guilty or feeling unworthy or something, we just let go of that other object and bring it back to the breath. Let's try this for some minutes. If the mind gets distracted, we just gently bring the mind back to the breath. If the mind gets kind of dull or sleepy, we try to be more focused and more alert, more awake. And then, having brought the body and mind in a conducive condition, we fill this peaceful space that we have created now with a positive motivation. So we try to make our mind as vast as possible so that it is very powerful in this activity that we're going to do tonight here together. So first of all, we can again remind ourselves that we came here for a certain reason. It's not that anybody forced us to come here. It's not that we have to be here. And there were many other things that we could have done tonight, but we opted to come here. So it's our free decision. And so we can check what do we actually expect? Why did we come here? What is our motivation right now? And then we could try to maybe specify our motivation for tonight along the following thoughts. I want to listen here tonight and also practice a little bit together tonight and engage with all what I have, with all my concentration, all my intelligence, all my experience, with all my questions also in tonight's process, in tonight's event here, so that I can learn more about myself and my mind, and to learn tools, to find out about tools, so that I can apply them in my daily life, to become more happy, more peaceful, more loving, more open, and improve my life by improving my mind. And I also want to do so in order to not only benefit myself, but to bring benefit from what I learn here, what I understand here, to bring benefit to others by either being a better person with them, more conducive person, or even to share the tools, to share my understanding if other people want to know about it. So in this way, I want to use this evening to the utmost, with all my might, with all what I have, in order to improve my own situation and also to benefit others. And then we can come back and start the evening. So, good to see you again, already after just 1 week, or actually not even a week. Last time we had a Wednesday. So today we're going to start the second module, which is going to be on meditation. And I think it's not a secret that this is kind of the completely central tool in Buddhism. To some extent, you could say Buddhism is all about meditation. The Buddha became enlightened in a state of meditation. You can actually even say that the Buddha became enlightened in a state of meditation and never left that state of meditation. Although he was later on acting and standing up and walking around, his mind continuously stayed in meditation. And he's in meditation right now as we speak. It's a meditative state, an absorbed state. So, the thing is that there might be all kind of ideas about what meditation is. We might think, oh, it's simply something to be done because it's a kind of a practice in spirituality. So if you're spiritual, you should do some meditation. In the same way that if you're religious, you should do some prayers or something. It is to be done kind of thing. It's kind of part of the whole scenario. But actually, there's a very specific purpose. It's a very specific, precise, almost technical idea behind this tool of meditation, or why you meditate. So meditation is actually a very specific way of using our capacity. Due to having mind, we also have the capacity to be concentrated. Due to having mind, we also have the capacity to get familiar with a certain object, more and more familiar. We can encounter a certain object, a certain teaching, a certain language, for example. We can encounter this for the first time, we can learn about it, and then by using it more and more, that tool, that language, and so forth, we can get better and better at it and become second nature. So we become familiar with a certain kind of behavior, with a certain kind of skill. And so this kind of getting familiar with something, by learning something, like for example, let's say in our jobs, we are doing all kind of, we have certain kind of skills that we had to learn, and now we use them every day, and they might be very easy for us. We can easily apply them. We don't have constantly to check back how to do this. It has become second nature. We just do it. We can just produce that, can fill out these forms, or I don't know what your respective work is. So it is very clear that we have a strong capacity as human beings, as somebody who has mind, to habituate ourselves, to get familiar with something. And this is actually the meaning of meditation. Yeah, so meditation, of course, is a word out of the Western context. So it's kind of an English word. So it's talking about meditation, like going to the middle. Yeah, medias is kind of the middle in Latin. So it's talking about that. But what it actually is about is a practice of familiarization. Yeah, you want to get familiar with a certain kind of object. And that's what we're doing, as I said, all the time in our life already. Yeah, we constantly learn things and then we use them and we get familiar with them. And in this way, things go more and more smooth. Same thing also with a person. You encounter a certain person, then you find out things about this person, and then you get familiar with this person. And then finally, there's kind of a relationship or something going on. You know more about the other person, and it's just normal. What you first had to find out, at one point comes it's kind of just part of the situation. You have to become familiarized with this other person, or again with this work process, or with that language, or with that kind of behavior and so forth. What comes to my mind right now is, let's say you're working in a job where there is a strong risk for health. So there's a security protocol, how to deal with this kind of machines or with this kind of liquids and so forth. So first you need to learn that. Yeah, they will tell you about it. They will inform you. Yeah, we'll simply get the knowledge about this way of dealing with these dangerous substances or dangerous machines and so forth. But then over the years, or over the days already actually, it will become second nature. You don't have to read a handbook on this anymore. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to watch other people how they do it. You know how to do it. It's just become normal. And to some extent, this is exactly what meditation is. Yeah, you will first have to learn something about a certain topic, about a certain kind of behavior and so forth. And then with the tool of meditation, you're familiarizing with that very thought, with that very understanding that you have gained, let's say on an intellectual level, and you familiarize with that, you familiarize with a certain behavior maybe, with a certain kind of way of thinking, with a certain kind of observing, let's say your own mind or situations, yeah. For example, it might be that you're changing your way of communicating by adding kind of a corner of your mind that is observing in your communication, like what kind of body language do you have right now? What kind of words are you using? How emotional are you while you're speaking and so forth? Yeah, so you might add that. And you get familiar to that kind of observing your behavior, and you might adjust your behavior. And then you familiarize with a different way of communicating, a different way that you understood to be more conducive, maybe more successful, actually getting clarity into your communication, or really understanding the other person's point, getting your emotions across and so forth, your actual need and so forth. So you find maybe a better way of communicating, and then you train in that. You use it on a daily basis, and at one point you communicate differently, naturally, without having to think about it. So what the Buddha Dharma is about is talking about techniques. Or first of all, the Buddha will point out how there is certain kind of dangers, or how we are unsuccessful in our wish to be happy and not to suffer with many of the things that we do with our mind. Many of our behaviors are actually not so successful in our wish to be happy and not to have problems. Actually, many of our behaviors, our way of thinking, way of speaking, are producing problems when we actually don't want to have problems. We actually ourselves very much part of all of our problems. And also with regard to our happiness, we might have certain ideas about what brings happiness and so forth, but we might not be so successful actually with these things, with these structures that we are using, these ideas that we are using. So the Buddha will first point out this part, that he sees that there is problems in our way of behaving physically, verbally, and even in the realm of thinking. That we don't get what we're actually looking for, the joy and happiness in our life, and also peace in our life, and so forth. So that's the first thing. The second thing will be that will be suggesting different ways of speaking, different ways of physical behavior, different ways of thinking, different approaches. He will point out different kind of activities on the three levels of body, speech, and mind that he will explain why they will be more successful in attaining what we're looking for, which is happiness, peace, harmony with others around us, and so on, instead of having problems, miscommunication, maybe feeling depressed, and so forth. Yeah? So, in order to deal with this situation, the Buddha is going to present certain kind of alternatives to what we're doing right now. And so we study those, we try to understand what the Buddha is actually suggesting, and then we might understand what he's saying. But then comes the meditation, then comes the part where we need to get familiarized with that. We need to kind of integrate it in our own whole being. It has to become a part of us. Just like in the present, we have many ways of behavior that we are not aware of even, because they're part of us. They're completely integrated. That doesn't mean they cannot be changed, but I'm just saying they are not something intellectual or something that we have to think about a lot. We are naturally engaging in all kind of patterns, and these patterns are actually nothing else than habits. So we have familiarized with a certain way of doing things, a certain way of dealing with other people, a certain way of meeting certain situations with certain kind of behaviors. And we don't even think about it anymore. It's just like, it's almost like a feeling like this situation needs this kind of behavior. Naturally, it feels like that. And then we engage in this kind of behavior. So the Buddha is first going to point out that we have this behavior. Then he's going to say how this is not so successful actually. And he's going to suggest an alternative to that. And then what you do is by practice, you're trying to, first of all, without kind of a practice, like a formal practice, you first need to understand what the Buddha is saying. Yeah? So first is there's a part of learning and investigating, and maybe also discussing with others and so forth. Yeah. But the Buddha is by no means at any time expecting from us that we're just taking what he's saying on face value just because the Buddha said so. This is a very interesting concept in Buddhism, but the Buddha himself says, "You shall not accept any of my teachings out of respect for me." You could say out of devotion for me, or I don't know what, out of kind of some enthusiasm or something. But you need to check my teachings. But if you have checked them and you found them to be true, you found something, even if it's just a part of it as true, then you should really apply it. You should really kind of take it into your life and change your life according to that what you have understood. So I'm just pointing out, the Buddha says, I'm just pointing out something. You need to check that. You need to come to an understanding. You need to really kind of penetrate that. And when you have understood it, when you have penetrated it, then you need to apply it. So you need to apply it because the Buddha is not just talking about something that you need to investigate and find out if it's true or not. He's talking about ways of becoming happy, even in a very long term, even in a very vast sense. So that's what the Buddha is talking about. That's what we need to investigate. But if we understand, if we understand what the Buddha is saying and we hold it to be true by our own understanding, our own investigation, then we should apply it. Why? Because we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer. And that's what the Buddha is talking about. So whatever we find true about what the Buddha is saying is something about how to become happy and how not to suffer. So that's kind of the steps. We first need to understand what's going on right now. The second thing is to, and how the Buddha is saying that there is this not so successful in our quest for happiness and peace. Then we need to understand what the Buddha is offering as an alternative. When we have understood that by our own engagement in investigating and so forth, then we need to apply it so that it doesn't just stay intellectual knowledge, because this is completely possible. It is possible to study Buddhism and know a lot about Buddhism, and it stays intellectual knowledge and it doesn't change your life. This is probably happening for most people in universities who are Buddhologists. They know a lot of languages of Buddhism. They know Chinese and Japanese and Tibetan and Sanskrit and Pali and I don't know what. And they have written all kind of dissertations on all kind of subjects concerning Buddhism, Buddhist art, Buddhist history and so forth. But the problem is that it might be, or it's probably the case for many of them, that they never put this into practice. It doesn't change their life. So in other words, they don't, even if they understand what the Buddha is saying, they might not have had the attitude in the first place to actually listen to the Buddha's teaching, study the Buddha's teaching in order to improve their life. They are maybe studying it to have a career in the academy and then the university to make a living. So the idea is very similar to everybody else, to make money and then buy a car and have a house and so forth. And this is the idea about being happy. So that's very different from what the Buddha is actually all about. The Buddha is actually talking to us very personally. He's taking us very serious in our innermost felt need for happiness and peace and harmony and improving our qualities in our life. And he's talking to us like a very, very close friend on that topic that is really at the center of our life. How to get happy, how to gain happiness, how to gain happy experiences, lasting experiences, and so forth. And so he wants to talk to us because he's indeed concerned. He wants us to be happy as we are looking for happiness. He wants us to gain that. He's very much on our side, if you could say. And so therefore he's really kind of aiming at that we are understanding something and that we then apply that so we do get more happy, or you could also say more free and so forth. So that's what it's all about. So even if you have understood what the Buddha is saying, what the Buddha is aiming at, then it is crucial not to leave it on an intellectual level. Yeah? So you might have a lot of knowledge about Buddhism and suffer in your life a lot. And the answer to this would be, it's because you don't apply. You don't actually work with your mind. We saw this in the previous module. The mind is where the happiness is going on. It's in the mind where the suffering is going on. In the end, this suffering and happiness are mental states. So this is where we need to work. Yeah? If we want to live up to our innermost need for happiness and joy and need to be protected from suffering and so forth. So that's the thing. If in our mind there is unhappiness, there is a lack of joy, also maybe a lack of energy and so forth, it is because we don't work with our mind. We have maybe not understood the structures in our mind. We don't have understood that there's alternatives to the ways we are doing things, different ways of doing things. And we might, even if we have understood all of this, we have left it on an intellectual level, we have not integrated it. Just on a side note, is the image that you get from me very dark? Do I have to turn on some light over here?
No, no need.
It's okay, good. So, so that's what meditation is all about. Meditation is about integrating ways of doing things or behaviors, yeah? And again, physical behaviors, verbal behaviors, and mental behaviors, by way of concentrating on an alternative way of doing things. So we get away out of the old habits. So that's actually what's going on. We try to create a positive, a conducive habit, and by this counteract the habits that we have right now, which are not so successful in attaining happiness and harmony and so forth. So I guess in the next week you're gonna come together and watch the video that the FPMT is providing for this module. And so in this video, His Holiness is saying that meditation is a discipline for cultivating a familiarization with a positive object. Yeah. So again, this comes down to what we were just talking about. That first of all, you need to understand the positive object, and then in meditation, you are cultivating a familiarization, being familiar with that object, with that positive object. Meditation has different parts in it. So one of them is capacity to concentrate. Yeah, so concentration is a big part of meditation. Another part is mindfulness, which in this case means something like recollection. So you're able in the meditation session to actually hold the positive object, to keep it in mind. And another thing will be that there is something called introspection, which is a quality of the mind that is checking where we are right now. Are we still on the virtuous object, or are we distracted? Yeah, so distraction, of course, is one of the main problems that you will face in the practice of meditation. And so what you're trying to bring about is a concentrated and also very vivid mind that stays on a positive object. Let's say you're doing a meditation on love and compassion. Yeah, so you want to have a mind that is very clearly on the different subjects that are connected to compassion, and then also at one point compassion by doing the correct steps might arise in your mind, and then you can hold this compassion. This very state of mind can be an object of meditation, and then you want to concentrate on this and hold this as vivid and as long as possible to simply create a habit of being in this kind of state of mind. Yeah, so this is the first point, to understand how meditation is really about a form of getting familiar with something. Yeah, so it's a technique, and can be a very intensive technique to actually get a habit with regard to positive states of mind, and it can also be a habit with kind of stepping out of negative states of mind. Yeah, to stop negative states of mind. The meditation is mainly about generating these kind of new habits. There is two types of meditation. One is the concentration meditation, where you actually try to increase this capacity to concentrate. But the other one, which is the more important one, is the analytical meditation, where you're actually having a certain subject and you're going over it again and again, logically, thinking about it, using your Dharma knowledge, in order to generate an emotional response, if you like, and an actual state of mind, and then concentrate on that. So the concentration that you generate in the concentration meditation is a tool in the actual meditation, which is the analytical meditation. Again, let's say a meditation on love. So you actually want to generate states of love by thinking along the lines that are presented as conducive for generating a state of love. And you want to think about this with concentration, and when this actual mind of love arises, then you want to stay on that also with concentration. So it's a tool within the actual analytical meditation, is this concentration meditation. So that's already something that somebody who hears the term meditation might get wrong. He might think meditation is talking about concentration, and that's it. Yeah, to go to the middle, to the medias. Yeah, to do meditation means to simply concentrate. That's it. But that's not the case. This is just one type of meditation. It's a little bit like what we did in the beginning, or what we always do in the beginning now when we try to concentrate on the breath. You take an object and you try to keep the mind on that object. And what will happen is that, why are you cultivating concentration? Because you don't have so much concentration. You want to improve your capacity to concentrate. And so you could say the lack of concentration is due to there being a different mind from concentration, which is distractedness. A distracted, a scattered type of mind. So that mind you want to counteract. You have kind of a habit of being distracted, a habit of being scattered in mind. I think there's a modern expression for this. You have a very short attention span, and you want to improve that. So, for example, let's say you are you communicate with other people, and you would like to concentrate on what the other people are saying and what they want to share with you and so forth. But because you have a natural state of being distracted, let's say because of a lot of advertising, a lot of television, a lot of what's happening in your normal life, you just can't stay with the other person so long. The other person might really need you to listen, might really need somebody to be present while the other person is talking about what's going on in his or her life. But you just can't stay with the person so long because you're so scattered. You have such a short attention span. So you might want to improve this. Yeah? You might improve your capacity to listen to others by, for example, being more concentrated and being able to fight a mind that is constantly scattering and running off into all kind of different areas. So we do this little meditation here in the beginning where we are placing the mind on the breath. So the breath is a neutral object. So the mind will be very quick to say, this is very boring. I'm not entertained by the breath. I want something else. I want something more vivid, something more engaging. So the mind thinks of something else. It takes another object in order to be more thrilled. There's a distraction. Running for other objects, going to other places and so forth. Thinking, like up to the point where you are rather thinking about your problems than to just kind of calm down and be on the breath. So therefore, this scatteredness is going to be a problem in this concentration meditation. Just this very simple one that we are doing here on the breath. And so the meditation or the practice is just that, to counteract that. When the introspection factor is seeing that the mind is scattered, then you bring it back. Just as I said here in the beginning. When we see the mind has been distracted, we don't make a big deal out of it, we just bring it back to our object. So we decide on an object before, then we do a meditation with that object, and we have decided for this. And that's why I always say, like, we allow ourselves to just do this, just watch the breath. Yeah? It's not, we don't have to constantly check if there's something better to do than this or something more worthwhile. We just decide we're gonna go for the breath, and if the mind is distracted, I'm gonna bring it back. It's not a question of, oh, I have failed in my meditation, or I'm just so unspiritual I can't concentrate. Nobody can really concentrate, especially in a world like this where there's so much distraction and so forth. So it's completely normal to lose the object in the beginning a lot. So therefore, without any much of a drama, when introspection has seen that you have gone off, just bring the mind back. And that's the practice. This is how you counteract distractedness and so forth. Yeah, so I'm describing this in order to make an example of how in meditation you're actually building up a new habit by getting familiarized with a new object, and in doing so you're counteracting other habits which might be a little bit more which are not so successful, which are not conducive, which are even negative. And so these old habits will actually kick in all the time. You will try to go to the old habit, and so therefore with introspection you bring the mind back to the new object and try to stay in this new object. So this is at least what we are saying here in this tradition of Gelugpa Tibetan Buddhism, which our geshes are referring to as being Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, coming out of the monastery of Nalanda so this is not my monastery in this case, but the one that used to be there in India. Huge university place in India at previous times, like 1,000 years ago or something. So the Tibetans are saying this is how it was meditated in India in that way. They studied a lot and then they put that what they had understood into practice in this way. So I'm saying this because I feel like that there is many different types and many different traditions of meditation on the planet, and this is non-Buddhist meditations and there's Buddhist meditations. So I guess there is meditating Christian monks and nuns, or some contemplative practice, and that might be something very different from what I'm describing here. And within Buddhism you might have Zen. Yeah, and I don't know exactly what they're doing in Zen, but it seems to be very different from what I'm describing here. I'm saying here, for example, that we are actually aiming at an analytical meditation. We are actually aiming at analyzing things, thinking about things, and by that way coming to conclusions and then cultivate these conclusions. It seems like Zen is not so much into thinking in the first place. Yeah, so they are looking maybe for something like I call this a non-conceptual meditation or something, like a meditation without any kind of thoughts and so forth. So anyway, as I said, I don't know much about that. So I'm just saying, like, what I'm going to present here, not surprisingly, is what Tibetan Gelugpa is saying.
Can you turn on the light now?
Yeah, maybe I turn it on. Just a second. Aha! Okay, international illumination on both sides. Great. So, right. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here with meditation. So the basis of all of this is that the very nature of the mind is that it can be changed. So if the nature of the mind would be that it's very, very rigid, that it's not changing moment to moment, it would be very difficult to do anything about the states of mind that we are having. So we would be kind of just prey to our afflictions and couldn't do much about it. But this is not the case. The mind can be changed. The mind can be worked with. We saw in the previous module that the definition of mind it is that which is clear and knowing, and that's all. It's not that it is clear, knowing, and intelligent, or clear and knowing and loving, or clear and knowing and nationalistic, or clear and knowing and depressed. It's not like that. All of these extra things that I just mentioned are possible forms of mind, but the mind is just clear and knowing. It just has an appearance and engages it mentally. That's all. Mind has also, for example, always a feeling with it and so forth. So there's many things you can say about mind in general, but there is nothing about a specific state of mind that would make it more the nature of the mind than any other state of mind. So that means we can really kind of let go of habits that we find in our mind without having to fear that we're going to lose something, or that we need to kind of hold on to these even negative structures in order to know who we are, or in order to keep our identity or something like this, or that if we would get rid of our anger or attachment, we would have to get rid of our mind or something like that. And there's thoughts like this around. So I'm saying that the nature of the mind is simply that it is clear knowing. The mind can be changed, which is very obvious from all the examples I think that I brought to you, also with regard to your work experience, where you learn things and then later on you ingrain them and so forth. So the mind can be worked with, can be changed, and the mind is able to understand things. The mind is able to put things into questions. The mind is able to understand processes within itself. The mind is able to understand the mind. The mind is able to understand the structures and the habits that we have. You can become more aware. Something that that is going on in your mind and you're not aware of, you can become aware of. That's in the nature of the mind. You can assess, you can understand if what you're doing is actually successful. You can understand the results of what your behavior has. You can understand that you want to be happy, you don't want to suffer, and so forth. And you can change your life according to what you find there. You can also understand if spiritual masters are describing to you different ways of doing things. You can try things. You can start with certain practices, and when they are difficult, you can be encouraged to keep going anyway. You can get better at things, like just as you get better, like this, when you learn driving. I guess the beginning was a disaster. I guess I personally never made a driving license, but I guess the first time you were in a car, it was kind of difficult, I would expect. But by now it's second nature, I guess. So all of this is completely in our capacity, in our mind. And so because that's the case, then anything in our mind can be changed by practice, can be changed by meditation in this case. And so again, the meditation itself then is actually a tool for changing the mind that is more intensive than just understanding something. And last time I was talking about, or maybe several times by now, I've been talking about how we can understand things in our mind, and if we see that there is something that is unconducive, and understand that we would like to change something, then there is some things which we can change right on the spot. We understand that's wrong, then we stop that. Other things take longer. And yet other things are very difficult to change. They might take years or even the rest of our life to change. So that means the behaviors and even the thoughts and so on, or the attitudes that we want to change are of a different heaviness or stickiness. Yeah. So in order to get to deal with the more difficult ones, then here at the latest we need to work with meditation. What I'm saying is there's other things that we can change just on the spot. We don't have to do a meditation for that. Yeah. So that's also one thing, that with meditation you're already going further. You're already kind of really engaging into the spiritual process. You really kind of try to change something in your mind. And again, you're doing this because first of all, by having listened to teachings, having thought about what the Buddha is saying and so forth, you are generating an interest in changing something in your life. That's why you do meditation. It's not that you have to do meditation. Most people on this planet do not do meditation. Nobody can force you to do meditation. Yeah? You shouldn't do meditation in order to be a spiritual person or something like that. But you would do meditation because you want to change something in your mind. And then the tool to do so is by a proper type of meditation. Yeah, so this is what a little bit what comes to my mind when I talk about meditation. And I thought maybe we could just do a little bit of meditation, or maybe I could talk a little bit about the sitting position. I think that our session is going until 7 o'clock, right?
Right.
The last time I messed this up, I think I went up to 7:30. Sorry for that. But okay, so we have some time. So maybe we can just do a meditation anyway, but we will focus on the sitting posture. Yeah, we look at the sitting posture, and which is then of course something that is true for all the different meditations that you can do. So I think in general, if you check the sitting posture, what this does is it brings you out of your activity into the present moment, and it brings you back to your body. And I say this is already in many situations very, very helpful. Yeah, you might not be sitting cross-legged or something, but even in your daily life, sometimes it's simply good to make a cut and to check a little bit the body, to come back to the body, and in this way kind of ground yourself. Yeah, it's a very quick method. It can be done anywhere really. It can be like if you're in an office, or if you're in a park, or on a bus, or wherever. Maybe even in a car when you're standing in a traffic jam or something. Yeah, but it's to sometimes kind of to step out of it and go somewhere completely different and check the body if the body is tense. You would be surprised how often you will find your body is tense in your daily life. And then to actively relax the body. This is what you do in the beginning of a meditation session. You take a certain position and you check the different parts of your position if there is any tension there. Yeah, you make your body conducive for what you want to do later on, which is the actual meditation, which is a mental training. But in the same way, also in your daily life, you can sometimes check your body and make it conducive for the next, for the next meeting, for the next job, for the next telephone session, and so forth. Yeah? So that's maybe something to keep in mind, that what you're doing there in the beginning of a meditation session is not something that very esoteric. It just makes complete sense to check your body and make it conducive for what you want to do now. So what you want to have for a meditation session especially is not just a relaxed body, but you want to have a stable position, so that you can, with time, also support a meditation session that is longer. So the stability is to a big part coming from how you're sitting with your legs. Yeah, so if you are able to sit cross-legged, then that's the best. Like actually it is the traditional teachings would talk about the so-called full lotus. In the full lotus, you would sit like the depictions of the Buddha in tankas and so or in images and so forth. That means you would have your feet on your thighs. Yeah, so this is described as being so you would sit cross-legged and the feet would be on your thighs. So that's something that is described as being very, very stable, very, very stabilizing the whole posture. But then, of course, this might be too strenuous. This one has to bear in mind that this kind of instructions are also coming from teachings that are given to actual yogis who are actually doing this for the rest of their life. So that's maybe not exactly our situation. But anyway, so the important thing is to have a stable basis with your legs. So let's say you can sit cross-legged. And then here the idea is that you would use a cushion in order to raise a little bit your backside. Yeah, so that would, if you do that, then what happens is that your the whole body weight is kind of channeled via the thighs to the knees, and you're having this triangular position and it's heightened in the back, and in this way the whole situation is very, very stable. And it is also kind of helpful for you to sit upright, which is the second most important part. Actually, it's the most important part to sit upright. And I'm saying that to sit upright is very essential, because if you cannot sit cross-legged, yeah, let's say you have to sit on a chair like I'm doing here in this session, for example, while we are talking here. I'm sitting on a chair, I'm not sitting on a mat. Then you will not sit cross-legged on a chair, obviously, or maybe you're sitting on a chair in the first place because you cannot sit cross-legged. So then the most important thing is still to sit as stable as possible with your legs, and then to sit upright, even on the chair. So don't lean on the lean of the chair. This might make you sleepy or something like this later on, but you need to sit upright. So this is the second most important part. So the first thing is that you try to have a stable position with the legs. If you can, you do the so-called half lotus or the full lotus, sitting cross-legged, raising your backside, but with a cushion and so forth, in order to make it very stable. And then you check that your spine is completely straight. Yeah. So this is sometimes described that you can imagine that your spine, in one text I was reading, is like an arrow, yeah, very, very thin, straight up. And in another context, I heard that you could imagine that your spine is like a stack of coins, one coin on top of the other, and staying there. So like that, you want to sit upright. So that's kind of the essential things, to have a stable and upright position. So the upright position, they say, is also very good from a point of view of what is more taught in Tantra, which is that we have inner energies circulating. And if you're sitting upright, they say that the inner energies can circulate through the body very smoothly. While if you're kind of leaning forward or kind of bending and so forth, then there might be some physical obstacle actually there. Not a huge one, but something is less conducive than when you sit upright. So anyway, this sitting upright is very important also because if you would be tired, then naturally you would kind of bend forward, or you would kind of lean or something like this, or kind of take away the tension out of your back and kind of not sit upright. So therefore, not to sit upright is a condition for getting sleepy during a meditation. Yeah, so that's one of the two things that you want to get rid of. You don't want to be excited or distracted during the meditation, and you also don't want to be dull or sleepy in the meditation. So therefore, this is the two major features: having a stable way to sit, and having an upright position. Then the next thing is that you're putting your hands in your lap. And you're doing this by putting the right hand into the left hand, and the thumbs are touching. So that's the position that is prescribed. So if you do that, then naturally your hands will be at the level of the navel, which is again a spot in the body that is connected with being grounded, with being concentrated, and so forth. So that's what you do with your hands. In the end, I'm just describing to you here what is called the 7-point position of Vairochana, which is the normal description of a meditation posture. Of course, in the end, you have to decide what is best for you. So you will see people who are meditating with their hands on their knees, or you might see people who are changing the position of the hands during the meditation. Anyway, the traditional description is that you're putting your hands one into the other and the thumbs touching in your lap. Kind of the third point. The next point, which I think is common knowledge also in the West now, even amongst medics, is that you have to check your shoulders. That there's a lot of tension going on in your shoulders. So you need to, you check your shoulders if they are tense in any way. If they are tense in any way, then you are relaxing them, which is very easy. You can either rotate your shoulders, or you can just put them up and let them fall heavily and so forth, yeah. So you do something with your shoulders in order to make them relax, to make them to make sure that there's no tension there. Yeah, that's also clearly mentioned here in the text, in the ancient text. But I heard that even doctors today are aware of this, that there is something going on with the body if there's tension in the shoulders. And again, my experience is that if one is in a difficult discussion or a difficult communication, it might be that one kind of naturally takes on a little bit of a bend and a little bit of a tension in the shoulders. So it might be very helpful for you people, even in your daily life, to sometimes check your body and see what's your body posture in the shoulders, for example, and then to let go there, to open up again in the discussion, in the communication that you have right there in daily life. But back to the meditation situation, also here you want to have the shoulders relaxed. So this was the fourth point. Here we had a sitting posture, the spine is upright, the hands are lying one in the other, thumbs are touching in the lap, and the shoulders are checked to be relaxed. Then you have a head posture. Yeah? So the head should not be looking straight into the distance, and it also should not hang down too much. If it hangs down too much, again, it's going to be a cause for being sleepy, for getting dull. If you are having the head too much up, it will generate more thoughts. It will generate more loftiness. It will generate more distraction. So the description is such that you should, while sitting upright, it's not that the body or the shoulders are bending, but while sitting upright, the head is leaning forward, is bent forward a little bit, and they say you try to do it such that your fist is still easily fitting between the throat and the chin. Yeah, so in this way you can check what this is about. So that's kind of I say how you keep your head, and then you check within the face, within the head, all kind of if there's any kind of tensions there. So it's very easily possible that there's tensions in the face, yeah, that there's some muscles or the cheeks or something, and especially the jaws, that the jaws can be tense. This can go so far that you might be biting the teeth together. So you don't want that. You don't want to have the mouth completely open. Or let's say the chin hanging down or something. You want to have the mouth closed, and you want to have the jaw being relaxed in a natural state. Yeah, no tension there, also no too lax, just naturally. Also the teeth are lying on each other, very natural. Yeah, so you check all these different features with regard to the head, the face, the jaw, and so forth. Again, no tension there, and so forth. So yet another topic is what you do with your tongue. Yeah, so you would try to put the tip of your tongue to the top of the mouth, to the top of the palate. So you would put the tip of the tongue behind the upper row of teeth. This is where you put it. And why would you do that? So it says that this will prevent you from producing a lot of saliva and having to swallow all the time, which can again be a factor of distraction. So that's kind of, I think this is all the seven positions, body positions that are checked or that you go through. Again, I feel like for some of you people this is nothing new. For others it might be new. If it's new, today it's information. We're going to do this on a regular basis from now onwards. So you're going to get better at that. And again, at one point you just sit down and in no time you have checked your body and you just start. Yeah. So that's just in this module of meditation. This is one of the topics to talk about, this body posture, right? Yeah, and then we have exactly 8 minutes left, so we can either do a discussion or we do a little bit of meditation. I think there's no, you probably don't have, do you have any questions? Probably not, huh? It's all pretty straightforward. Do you have a question? Yeah. Okay. Oh, you do. Okay. So then, sorry, let me stop here with the with the body posture and stuff, and then we can maybe have some questions. Yeah.
Uh, is it okay if while you're meditating, instead of focusing just on your respiration, because I really get distracted very easily. I try to walk through all of my body and observe each part on its own separately.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is that of course there is many different types of meditation objects. It's just that the breath is, or the breathing is a very easy object that everybody already has. So you can start right there. Like for example, in comparison to taking a Buddha image as your object, then you would first have to investigate all the different details of a Buddha, start a visualization. So it's quite advanced to some extent. So the breath is quite easy. It's happening right here, right now. You could also observe your body or something like this. But the thing is that if you are easily distracted, well, then that's exactly your practice, I would say. Yeah. So if you watch the breath and you see how the mind walks off, you will see this in the video that you're going to watch next week. This is clearly described in the Buddhist teaching. There's no surprise here. Nobody is surprised about that when you sit down and you try to observe something as, let's say, as boring, or well, maybe I shouldn't say as boring, but as neutral as the breath. It's no surprise to anyone in the Buddhist world that you're going to be distracted in no time. But that's exactly the question, yeah? The practice. You have to, first of all, you have to, how you say, experience that. Yeah? The first step of concentration meditation is just that. You sit down, you try to concentrate, you can't. Maybe 5 minutes later into time, you find out that you're distracted. You feel like you have wasted 5 minutes, you've been a failure for 5 minutes, blah, 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 yeah? Which is not the case. It's completely normal. This is how you start. So then, you do the first counteracting step. You bring the mind back to the breath. And then, by doing this, and then you might be distracted again within no time. And again, after 5 minutes only, you find out that you're distracted, and you bring it back. And maybe in the end, in the whole session, the first times in the whole session, you might be like, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds on the breath altogether. Maybe only 3 times. And that's just fine, because that's how it is. That's why it's fine, because that's how it is. But even this little bit, doing it in this way, will start a process where you will find your distractedness early on and be able to come back earlier. It has to do with determination. Again, one has to understand the benefit of this kind of practice, so that there is really kind of a motivator in you that makes you go back to the breath again and again. Maybe at this point it's also important to say the following. I don't know if you people already want to try to do this kind of breathing meditation and so forth, concentration meditation at home. So it is said it is good to do short sessions in the beginning. Yeah. Don't try to be super tough and spiritual warrior. I'm going to do 1 hour of watching my breath. Yeah. Start with 5 minutes. So one thing that they say is do 5 minutes, and after 20 minutes do another 5 minutes. And after 20 minutes, do another 5 minutes, if this kind of somehow fits your schedule. And otherwise, anyway, just do 5-minute sessions or 10-minute sessions or something like this, yeah? So that it's kind of a practice. It's short. It's not exhausting you. It doesn't kind of, take away your enthusiasm. You just, sometimes you do this thing, which is probably very new in your whole universe of experiences and so forth. So it will be difficult, but it is worthwhile just to do something, yeah. And I think in the beginning things can be get better rather quick, yeah. So it might be once one does this practice of bringing the mind back on a certain object, identifying being distracted, and then doing something against it, rather than identifying I'm distracted and then just keep distracted. So this kind of practice or this kind of behavior is already building up some kind of familiarization with an undistracted mind. So I would tell you, stay with the breath. Maybe short, but stay with the breath. All right. Anything else? That was pretty straightforward, right? Okay, cool. So what I understand is that next time you're going to watch the video, what's going on in the video is that you will first of all have some teaching from His Holiness. I find the teaching of His Holiness really always such that it's almost good to take every sentence and almost meditate on every sentence. But it's rather short by His Holiness actually. And then you have René Fussi, which is a monk that we here in the IMI in Nalanda also. We know him very well, and he was leading a retreat here in Nalanda and so forth. So he's long time around, and he's especially into meditation, especially into this concentration meditation. And he will describe all the different stages of a concentration meditation, especially. I don't think he's leading an analytical meditation there, but he's going especially through the steps of concentration meditation. It's good to listen to that. He will describe the whole meditation, which is going very, very far. There's incredible forms of concentration possible, which we have no clue of normally, which nobody tells us normally, which we would probably not even imagine that it's possible to have something like this. Like there's forms of concentration described in the scriptures, where the yogi who has attained this kind of concentration, you could make a bomb explode next to him and he wouldn't wake up from this concentration. He's so on the object. Yeah? So what is described by René Fussi is this complete practice is leading to very high states of concentration. So don't be listen to it carefully. Don't be discouraged. You know, it's not what you're going to do tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. It's you start with what we have been talking about. You sit down, you watch the breath, and you try to bring the mind back as often as possible. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you're going to do, I think. And I think then there's a guided meditation going on. I don't know who's going to guide this meditation. Marius is who's going to guide the meditation in the discussion group.
Well, there is an MP3. We can listen to the
okay.
audio.
Oh, that's cool. Good. So that's what's going on there, and then we meet again in 2 weeks, right?
Maybe you can suggest homework meditation for us.
Homework meditation. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, in the end, yeah, I don't know. I didn't describe this really, did I? I mean, I think it's just good to if you have the time to sometimes do like 5 minutes or 10 minutes of this very meditation that I was describing here, that we did here with the breath, because I think it has many benefits. It's not just that it makes you more concentrated, but it teaches you a lot about your mind. It teaches you about your mind, how you're so not in control. That very thing that is making your everyday and your whole life, you have no control. So that's a very good experience to have. Yeah? Showing something about the present state of affairs. So that's a side benefit. The actual benefit is that you get more concentrated. But as I said, you get more concentrated by way of deciding for the object of the breath. You try to hold it with what is called mindfulness, and then you check constantly with introspection where you are. And to strengthen this factor of introspection by doing this kind of practice is also very useful, because you might use it for anything, this introspection. As I said, even in your job, if you have a meeting, if you have a discussion with somebody, some communication, this factor might check where you are right now. You might be able to check your body while you're communicating, if you're having any kind of strange body language, if you're kind of tense somewhere, if you need to open up again in order to further the communication. So this is also good to simply strengthen this factor of introspection. Yeah? So there is the benefit of getting more concentrated, strengthening this factor of introspection. And as I said, you will learn a lot about your mind, how the mind is, let's say, unruly or very distracted, out of your control. You can't do with it what you want to do, rather the mind is doing with you what it wants to do, and so forth. So therefore, maybe you just take that. Yeah, it's maybe not so exciting or not so, I don't know, not so entertaining, but it's not supposed to be entertaining or exciting, but it might be very, very useful. Yeah, so just to your capacity, try to do this. I mean, you know, if you're coming back from the job in the evening and maybe you're tired or something, you might find out that this kind of meditation is a good way to start your evening. Yeah, to calm down, to watch the body a little bit, to breathe, to concentrate on that, to let go of the thoughts of what happened today, what will happen tomorrow, and so forth, and just to calm down. This is not the aim of this meditation. It's not the aim to be a relaxant or something. It's something that relaxes you, but it has this effect. So anyway, 5 minutes should be possible, or 10 minutes should be possible in all kinds of places of your day. Like, you might be able to do this in the morning before you leave, maybe before breakfast. You might be able to do this when you come back. You might be even able to do something in your lunch break. Yeah. So the 5 minutes can be done here and there in any kind of condition. Yeah? And we're just talking about this very simple form of meditation. Of course, there's much more advanced and much more complicated ones, which you would not do just 5 minutes before breakfast or in your lunch break. But this one that we were talking about today and did a little bit like in the last sessions, this meditation on breathing and so forth, I would invite you to do it as much as possible. If you want to do more of that, I would advise you to do short sessions, but more often, rather than doing a half an hour session or something. And I think that's all what we do for now. I was looking a little bit at the material for this topic, and it's not only about meditation and posture and technical things, but there's also actual topics to be meditated on, like precious human rebirth and so forth. So we will do analytical meditation also in this module. So something where you think about things and in a concentrated meditative state. So then this is what you can use in the future. But for the time being, just are on this introductory level, first thing, breath. And as I said, you will learn a lot about your mind. So just dive into it. Look, sit a little bit in meditation, meet the major factor of your life, which is your mind. And just be with your mind for some time. You don't have to have success with it. Yeah, you don't have to be very, very concentrated or something, or be a long time or something. It's enough to just spend time in meditation with your mind and see what's happening there. So get to know your mind as much as you can, and I think that's it then, isn't it?
Can you tell us a bit about what will the next session be about?
No, not really. I have to think about it because I saw today that there is also content, actually, not just meditation, but also some Lamrim topics are actually included in this in this module. There's a module is called meditation, but actually there's actual topics there, or like there's actual Lamrim topics here. I found out from what you sent me. Yeah. Like the precious human rebirth. So I have to see what I do. I thought it's going to be only about meditation. We will see. So maybe I teach something on precious human rebirth. Maybe we talk more about analytic meditation. I can't say much yet. I have to see what I'm going to do. Okay?
Okay, great. Yes. Thanks.
Wonderful then. Then we see each other in 2 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
See you.